So first off, thank you very much, Alex, for the talk you gave this morning. It was really insightful and, for us at the Wicking Centre and obviously the AAG and COTA. It's quite a coup for us to have someone of your international reputation to be able to talk to us about age-friendly cities, active ageing, and this new concept for me of solidarity, which was really interesting. Before I ask you a few questions, could you just tell me a little bit about your professional career?
I'm a medical doctor, and sometimes I apologize for being a doctor because my medical training is not so relevant anymore to what I do.
Sure.
It's really using different approaches to aging,
Mm-hmm.
from sociology, anthropology, and obviously epidemiology, to understand what is happening. It is a longevity revolution, and that is my luck. That I came from a very young country to do my training, my postgraduate training in England, and then subsequently recruited to WHO, and being the director of the WHO program on aging and health for 13, 14 years.
Great. And now you've moved in a new direction again, haven't you, with your work with the Longevity Centre in Brazil, is that right?
Yeah, it is a consortium of think tanks that we call International Longevity Centres,
Great.
one of which in Brazil. I'm also the president of the International Alliance, the Global Alliance of ILCs.
Great, okay. That's really good. And can you just tell us how you first became involved in the Age-Friendly Cities movement and where your interest in that came from?
If I can put like this, I didn't get involved in the age-friendly. We created. So we had a policy framework, the Active Aging, which was launched in 2002 at the World Assembly on Aging. And I was very eager to show that it's not only a philosophical, theoretical, hypothetical model, something that we can use in practice.
Sure.
And I think that the best way to put it into practice, the active aging, if you want, philosophy, was to let us make it useful, practical, within the context of where people are going to age.
Right.
And increasingly people are going to age in cities. So it's bringing together the two demographic trends of the 21st century, aging and urbanization.
Right.
Well, let us look how people are going to age in cities.
Right. And so the age-friendly policy from 2002, that was in some ways the impetus for the development of the whole age-friendly cities policy and the international network?
The foundation.
The foundation, okay.
You're really providing an ideology so that we could translate into practice. Why? Active aging is a process, it is life course. The earlier we start to prepare yourself to aging, the better. But it also responds to a number of determinants, from your behavior to your personal makeup, to access to services, to the physical environment where you live, the social context, the economic, all this contributing individually to the core, which is active aging,
Great.
but also within a substract, a background of gender and age and culture. So if you put all this together, you end up with the need for multi-sectoral policies. And the way to respond through the age-friendly cities is bringing all the departments. I'm not interested only in the Department of Health. That was a bit difficult as a WHO officer, being the health agency of the United Nations, for my colleagues to understand we need as much as the Department of Culture, Education, or Transport, or Housing, or Finance, as we need the Department of Health,
Right.
to create an environment where you can thrive in our old age and continue to be relevant and contributing to your society as you age.
Great. That's really good. Now, obviously, through the Age-Friendly Cities policy document, there's now the network of global age-friendly cities. I just wonder if you, in your experience, you could tell me about some of the examples of age-friendly initiatives that you've seen in other parts of the world or in Brazil that you're most fond of, or that you think are having the biggest impact for the most people?
Simple idea can have a huge impact. And it goes, for instance, New York, a very complex city. When I left WHO, I accepted the invitation to go there and work from the New York Academy of Medicine to prepare what is today one of the showcases of age-friendly. And I thought, if we make it work in New York, we can make it anywhere, because it's a very complex city. But also, it calls attention to, you know, however important an idea is in a village or a small town, it doesn't have the repercussion it does if you have a big city or a capital city or
Sure.
a city of the magnitude of New York.
Yeah.
The first thing that all the people in New York start telling us, common sense. Yes, we know that walking is good for us and we have to exercise, but in old age, you can walk 400 meters and you have to sit down and recharge batteries. We need benches. And then you need to, in older age, to have access to public toilets, but they have closed all the public toilets because of drug addiction. How do you do it? Well, the private sector has responded. So they sponsor benches, could be outside their grocery shop, it could be in the park. Over 4,500 bench parks for people or more spread around in Manhattan alone. All the people said there, oh, traffic lights are for Olympic champions. We cannot reach the other side. I have noticed this here in Hobart. You know, you put your foot into the target and that light that make you anxious. And am I going to reach the other side? And to make it more stressful, there is a noise. Well, with 1 hour work of a junior program analyst, we changed the grid of traffic lights in Manhattan without making it to slow down. So it is friendly to everybody. It gives more time for people to cross, but also the speed that will go from A to Z is not going to change. Other people also said, okay, sometimes it's too cold or too windy or too hot. It's not always that you can sit outside. So we have come up with the idea of age-friendly business, small business, could be a pet shop. And if this pet shop or a small restaurant or grocery or a bigger shop will allow you to use their toilet facilities, to sit down inside, indoor with comfort, maybe have a glass of water or maybe have special prices for certain items, you gain the seal of age-friendly business, friendly shop, restaurant, cafe. All the people are consumers, so they will favor your place. It's a win-win. And simple ideas like this, as we did in Rio, all the people identifying the porters, the doormen as their best friends. We're now training them, and with tools and some hints on how to deal with other people, they can provide a better service. They were friends already, but now they are friends with some tools on how to work with other people.
Great. Well, thanks for that. Those are some really good practical examples of how age-friendliness can be implemented. I wondered, from your talk this morning, you spoke a bit about the challenge of poverty and the differences of ageing in a more developed society and a less developed society. Globally, what do you think the main barriers or challenges are to implementing an age-friendly environment?
I think that number one is access to health services. It is inevitable that as you grow older, you will need more access to keep fit, to do the screening, to do the detection of that disease early enough so that you can control it properly, or to get more advice on how to grow older in good health. And the reality is that vast majority of the elderly population, of people aging, not even once they get into old age, don't have access to services at community level. I'm not talking about high-tech secondary, tertiary care. I'm talking about primary health care, the health center, because most of the problems, the health problems of older people, as of anybody, will and can be solved at that level without complicating and avoiding institutionalization which is much more expensive, and it's not what you want, nor I. So it's good for the patient, and it's good for whoever is paying, public or private sector, for the care of that patient.
Great. Yeah, it's really good advice. Now, obviously my interest is in age-friendly cities, and you have an interest as well, significant interest in that area. But I know there are other urban design principles that are similar in some ways. For example, crime prevention through environmental design, urban design, universal design, and child-friendly cities. I was wondering if you could talk about how age-friendly cities sits either alongside or over and above these other approaches.
Whenever you have a specificity, you can help to galvanize interest and support to one idea. Could be children, could be dementia-friendly, could be to galvanize society against crime. However, I think that if there is one approach that is universal, is when you put the lens of another person to look at your society. Because, say, that bus that is easier for you to get in and out and do your journey with security is going to be better for a child. It's going to be better if you have a disability, if you are obese, if you have a pregnant woman, if you are a teenager with a roof sack at the back.
Sure.
The other way around doesn't work. A dementia-friendly may or not be good for you. Child-friendly may or not be good for you. But if there is something that is universal and follows us throughout the life course, is an age-friendly perspective. And mind you, when we say in English age-friendly, we don't mean senior-friendly. It's friendly to age, it's neutral. And that's the beauty of the English language. We can transmit the idea that it is friendly to everybody, but you will start with using the lens of another person.
And as you mentioned, it relates to the life course perspective as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, we're all aging and we're all moving through time with our particular cohort. So.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There is only one alternative to aging.
Exactly.
Let us, be very positive about it.
Absolutely, that's great. Now, I'd just like to ask you a few questions about Hobart and Tasmania, and maybe putting age-friendly cities in a context of regional, rural areas or sort of small urban municipalities. And I was wondering, just in terms of what you've seen in Hobart and other small, compact Australian cities, how do you think these types of places can develop the capacity to become age-friendly?
The first thing is a question of attitude and changing the mind frame. It is looking at aging as an opportunity rather than a burden. Looking at the fact that this is the oldest state in Australia as an asset. Looking at the fact that you are a small enough state, Hobart. You have small towns, a city like Hobart. You have very remote villages or communities. You have a bit of everything with 500,000. 500,000 means that everybody would have access at second or third degree with the policymakers, the people that influence society, the media. You may be the neighbor of the daughter of the governor. This kind of thing that if you're in a big city or a big environment, or a country like China with 1,400,000,000 people, you don't. So make use of this. That you have from urban to semi-rural to rural, small towns, small access to the politicians and the policymakers, the media, and make it a laboratory. Once you do this, involve the university, because it is one recipe to get it right. You have people like you, a researcher, who is interested to do it rigor. So you do it properly, you provide the evidence, and then you call your friends from China, from Indonesia, from India, to do the training here. Make it a center of excellence for aging and age friendliness, in a way that bigger states, or let alone countries, will not be able to do. So I think that it offers Tasmania a tremendous opportunity to claim within 2, 3, 5 years to be an age-friendly state. This would be a win for everybody.
Great. Now, you also alluded to the fact that Tasmania is arguably the oldest state demographically in Australia, and obviously with a small population, with some of their regional and rural towns and small centres, one of the big problems is social isolation. And I'm just thinking, for a very small, isolated community in Tasmania, with perhaps a significantly aged population due to the outmigration of younger adults, how do we implement age-friendly principles in that sort of space to ensure that these people can age in place for as long as they want to?
Oh, first of all, listen to them. It's a second guess if I am going to give you an answer. So always use other people's voice and their protagonism, because so often they get it right. They are the best experts in their aging, and they know better than anybody what their problems are, and they have ideas on how to solve. But if there is an overall principle here, we live in a globalized world. When I first lived in Britain, only 40 years ago, to speak to my parents was like you had to place a call in advance and wait by the phone 6 hours, and then it would delay another 3, and it was extremely expensive. Instead of paying attention to what they were saying, you would be looking at the watch because you were going to pay. So today, use information technology and social media to break isolation, which is one of the problems, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So if these people that live in remote areas feel more involved and more connected, they will feel less lonely, less isolated, but also will provide answers. Maybe they need advice on something urgent, could be medical. So liaise and bring the health services in closer contact with them, and this would give them the sense of security and protection that in the past was almost impossible to bring.
And could that extend to things like telehealth as well, where you're giving them access to, as you say, online services or a telephone number they can call?
Yeah.
And so that would be part of the package in terms of physical access as well as electronic access. So to speak.
Suppose that you are prone, don't even need to be old, to epileptic fit, and your partner knows whom to call if you have an emergency and what to do. I mean, it's immediate. You feel much more secure, and potentially you can save lives. But also it is the psychological fact that you break isolation and loneliness. That sense of isolation for many older people is a real killer.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Now, obviously, there are parts of Tasmania, Clarence area is one example where they're starting to move ahead with age-friendly developments and age-friendly planning. If you were to come back, 20 years' time to Tasmania, and we progressed along our journey towards becoming an age-friendly state or having an age-friendly city in Clarence or Hobart, what do you think this would look like? What would your future vision for Tasmania be as an age-friendly state?
No, first of all, I wouldn't wait 20 years. I hope that we can make progress in 5.
Great.
People often think that, we are thinking in terms of physical barriers and the physical environment and replacing steps with ramps. This is the easy part. You have to think in terms of all the 8 dimensions that are described in the Vancouver Protocol for age-friendly cities. And it starts with transportation. It's critical, especially if you have people living in remote areas. In old age, you may lose your capacity to drive, and after that point, you'll be completely isolated. So you have to think in terms of what is sustainable and viable in a environment. I mean, it is a small state, but it is a state. It's what is sustainable in terms of public transportation. If that is not sustainable, how can we encourage, for instance, giving vouchers for people that you can still drive So you collect points, and when you no longer can drive, you exchange the vouchers you have collected so that you can use them now that you are dependent. So you have to create for all the 8 dimensions: access to services, information, education, work, housing, transportation, civic participation, social participation. All this is what gives you quality of life as a younger man, what gives me as an older adult the quality of life. You have to be specific about the policies. And definitely you can do that much faster than in 20 years.
Great. No, that's
And
really
that is the multi-sectoral dimension. And because, again, I repeat, you are small, you can do it bottom up and top down much quicker than you could in much bigger cities or states.
So there's a real advantage for Tasmania in that respect. Great, no, that's good to know. Now, Alex, obviously one of our interests here within the Wickham Dementia Research and Education Centre is preparing for a world in which we have a lot more dementia and helping to accommodate that. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you think age-friendly cities respond to the changing nature of health, given that, you know, in a lot of ways we are addressing cancer and we're addressing heart disease, and we're starting to see some of these sort of public health scourges plateau in some places. But with dementia, for example, we're seeing that increase, and there's no cure. It's continual, it's progressive, it's terminal. How does something like age-friendly cities respond to that sort of public health challenge?
Yeah, and it's also likely to increase exponentially in numbers, because you have more and more people reaching the age of 85 plus. And the percentage of people with dementia after that age increases every year. So we don't know how to prevent. We can pay lip services or do crosswords. The drugs that we have available are too crude, and there is nothing really that you can say, oh, the evidence is there to show that this could postpone the decline of the memory once the disease and the onset is clear. So we will have to develop more dementia-friendly environments. I was in a shop the other day in London, and I had not even paid attention until my daughter called my attention and said, look at that woman there. And it was an older woman in a wheelchair with a doll that she was nursing. And next there was this push chair with 3 or 4 other dolls, and she kept taking them in turns. And then I was talking to the woman by the counter, and she said, oh, she comes every day. And she spends 3-4 hours, and she nurses these dolls, and then she asks them to put them to sleep. They sleep here in the shop. Totally, completely included and assimilated into the life of that shop. We will need more environments like this. When I have Alzheimer, if I come to that, my mother does, that's what I want. An environment in which I live close by. Don't want to go to a health service. I want to be assimilated into the community and feel secure. The recipes for that, only every and single community will be able to develop.
Great. Okay, no, that's an excellent insight. Thank you, Alex. Now, I'd just like to finish off by asking you a few questions about your experiences developing the age-friendly cities policy. Now, you mentioned in your talk this morning about age-friendliness and active ageing that you had run a number of global focus groups in different places with older adults who had different challenges in terms of ageing well and ageing in a way that's active and healthy. I was wondering, what did those groups of adults say to you about what they thought age-friendliness was to them? What were the messages that came through in those focus groups?
The bottom line is a place where you feel secure to age with your needs satisfied, not only in terms of access to services, but with this autonomy that you can continue to age and be able to age with according to your wishes, and prolonging the time that you are above the disability threshold. So it's lowering that threshold. You may have a bad knee and be completely independent in Oslo and completely dependent in South Africa or in Islam in Rio de Janeiro, my home city. So that is what you need.
Great.
Is this mix which intrinsically requires a multidimensional, intersectorial approach to aging.
Great. And the older adults who you talked to in developing the policy, what were their main concerns in the places that they lived? What were the main barriers that kept coming through again?
Discrimination.
Discrimination, okay.
That is their main concern. That is what you hear from developed and developing countries, older people alike. It's the fear of being discriminated on the basis of your age. We need a rights-based approach. We need to empower older people. And there's going to be a sea change because the next generation of older people are people that are much more comfortable to shout for their rights. I am not going to age like my parents, let alone my grandparents, because I was a student leader when I was at university. So how can I, from a past of being an activist, become a passive recipient of benevolence in older age? And that is going to change. It is our voices shouting loudly for our rights.
Great, that's really good. And these older adults that you spoke to as well, I mean, obviously these interactions you had were quite participatory and they were giving you recommendations. What did they say that they wanted in terms of making a city age-friendliness? What was it? What were the one or two things that for them would really capture the essence of a place and make it a place they want to age in over time?
I think that the first thing is respect.
Yeah.
In a social dimension of the word, to be respected, to be heard, to have their rights. And the other practical, physical, is public transportation. A good policy on aging is a good policy on public transportation, because if you lose the ability to go from A to B to C to Z, then you will be isolated, you'll be lonely, you are likely to develop depression, and you lose the ability to access services and to have your autonomy, to go to the theater, to visit your daughter, or go to the church. That is what makes quality of life.
Great. So, and that's about access, from what you're saying, access to services, to friends, to networks.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you. Now,
in Tasmania, where these distances are very often, because of isolation in rural communities, it's even more important what kind of public transportation is feasible, sustainable.
Great. No, those are great insights. Now, I've just got one final question for you before we finish. You mentioned at the end of your presentation this morning that your group, the International Longevity Centre, are revising the 2002 World Health Organization Active Ageing Policy. Can you tell us a little bit about, maybe as much as you can, about how it's changing and also what the impetus for the revision was?
The definition continues to be the same, a process to optimize opportunities for health, lifelong learning, participation and security as you age, to improve your quality of life. The determinants are the same, from social services, behavioral, social environment, the physical, the economic and the personal. The focus on gender is much stronger. The focus on culture is much stronger. New emerging major concerns like elder abuse is given much more attention. But perhaps the big difference is that we put emphasis on the pathways to resilience. I want to know more in terms of active aging. What explains that the same problem that you face and me will cause a completely different reaction according to your profile, your personality, your optimism or your sense of humor. So these are things that we have to cultivate and we have to understand better, because everybody will face problems. in his or her life. Inevitable. Denial is real denial. The problems are there. Some people will crash head on and smash their heads and have a trauma. Other people will find a way to go around. So that is what we need to understand better, because resilience is perhaps the best way to describe successful, positive, or active aging.
Great. All right. Well, that's us. Thank you very much for your insights today, Alex. And yeah, we look forward to sharing these with the Wicking Centre students and other interested parties. So thank you very much for your time.
A pleasure.
Much appreciated.